Imagine stepping back into the world after more than 2 decades behind bars. The streets have changed, technology has advanced, and society has moved forward without you. But instead of letting the past define him, today's guest took control of his future and became a leader in reentry and behavioral health. Tonight, we sit down with Donte Hayes, a newly returning citizen from Baltimore who spent 21 years and 7 months in prison. Now he's not only the director of a behavioral health company, but also the director of reentry at Dreambuilders Foundation, helping others find the freedom and success he has fought so hard to achieve. In Dante's words, the instrument that so many of us have in common is pain. I choose to intentionally be more than that pain. I'm an example of what a chance can become. Who else is worthy of that same chance? So I want to go ahead and welcome Donte to the show. How's it going, brother?
Yeah, it's going well.
All
Yeah,
right.
appreciate the
That's,
invite.
yeah, no problem. And so in that little snippet, you said that the instrument that so many of us have in common is pain. Can you expand on that little mantra you go?
Yeah, so when I think about the pain and how it correlates to what I'm doing today, it's what I feel like it's defined me in the walk that I've taken. So growing up in the inner city of Baltimore, not having a dream, coming from a broken home, being excluded from the ultimate bigger picture of what it means to just to live. So I think trying to be more than my pain and trying to articulate beyond what that means is absolutely important. I believe that a lot of us come from the same those same beginnings and just don't understand how to be more than it. And so my purpose is to absolutely be more than what my struggle has said that I couldn't be more than.
Awesome. Awesome. Sounds great. Now, you're from Baltimore. Now, just some interesting facts about Baltimore, wherein it has some like the highest incarceration rates in the U.S. It's, with over 1,000 per 100,000 residents being behind bars, and it's significantly higher than the national average. What was it like growing up in Baltimore?
This city, it was pretty tough. My mom was a kid when she had us, and she was a child trying to figure out what education was going to be like, not knowing how to figure out what to do, being a single parent. I think that like being living in an environment where that's nothing that's being produced that's like worth having. It absolutely impacts us.
We all grew up in situations that were not ideal.
Yeah,
Most of the I'm going to say for the African American experience, and even for some poor whites in the states, it can be definitely wrong. So how did you end up serving 21 years in prison?
hanging around the wrong crowds. I didn't have a father figure in the home. My father, he was incarcerated when my mom was pregnant with me, and so there was no figure. There was no figure to look up to. So the closest example of what I wanted to be was right outside of my front door. So
Mm,
the man on the corner that had drugs in his pocket that showed me how to put money in my own pocket in order to take care of myself was absolutely going to be what I wanted to become.
mhm.
Um, so just like so many others that come up in those areas. So,
Yeah,
but it was pretty tough growing up in the city.
yeah. So with that being said, being doing 21 years, um, what do you think what were the biggest, probably emotional, physical challenges of long term incarceration? How did that affect you? Like, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I think prison it takes on many forms, and I think the physical aspect of prison wasn't as tough as the mental aspect of it. I think that once I got to a realization of what emotional intelligence was, connecting emotionally to other people, that's when prison started for me because I realized I wasn't supposed to be there. And so I'm trying to move through the corridors of prison when your mind is changed, when you want more for your life, it's absolutely tough.
Sure.
Sometimes it was a point that I didn't think that I would actually make it out of there. I gave up so many times, and I thank God for the helpers that I have around me, my village that I have around me, because even if you're strong, if you're around so many mentalities and mindsets that don't want anything for themselves, it can impact you. And so
Yeah.
just finding a reason to keep going. And at times when you feel like you just don't want to keep going, to have those letters coming in when you don't feel like you're going to get mail, or having somebody to say that we care about you, somebody cares about you, just keep going. It'll get better. When you don't believe in that, it made a difference for me.
Yeah. Now, I know prison for me, it changed my life in ways I could never imagine. This is a chapter of my journey that began with a little bit of humiliation, pain, and regret, but evolved into one of growth, transformation, and hope. Now, the manuscript that I've written, it reflects that path, and it pulls back the curtain on a life that started with, somewhat of a privilege. Because it was my dad, it was my mom, and my stepdad. And it was one of those things where my stepdad, he took the role on, because I never met my biological dad. Not to this day. I met his children, but I've never met this guy. So, but with my stepdad, he kind of filled that role. I think he came on like when I was like maybe 2. So for a long, that's all I knew, that he was around.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
No, absolutely. I think to tell a child to grow up in the city, to go to school, to be studious, and to listen to your parents when you've grown up in trauma. I've lived in abandoned homes with my mom. She would come and take us from down the projects, out of a warm bed, and just to have us, because she wanted to be a mom. She just didn't know how. And I just remember being in abandoned homes with kerosene lamps, and just trying to figure it out. So when you're told to grow up in that, and you're told to go to school when you don't have a home to go to, when you don't have a family structure around you, but you're still told to grow up, and nobody's showing you how to actually do that, it's pretty tough. And then growing up with that kind of trauma, and then going to prison with that kind of trauma, and then trying to figure out some sense of normalcy to come out here to be a better version of yourself. It takes virtually everything. It takes virtually everything.
So, did you have a moment? That's the perfect segue for this question I have for you. Was there a specific moment in prison that made you change your mindset? What sparked like the shift from I'm gonna get over this trauma, I can get past this? What was the shift?
I was I did a stint on disciplinary segregation. At this point, I had been on lockup or segregation quite a few times. But at this particular stint that I had did on segregation, I was informed by one of the psychologists that if I didn't correct my behavior, that I would be sent to the Supermax prison in Baltimore, and I would be locked in a cell 24 hours a day indefinitely, because I wouldn't conform to the rules of general population. And I went back to my cell, and I just reflected on that. I told myself that there's no way that I'm in prison and I'm in here doing things that put me tighter in prison. And I said, I got to figure this out. I'm 29 years old. I need to learn how to articulate what I'm trying to say. I cannot live the rest of my life being angry. I cannot take out my pain, my trauma, and my frustration on people who don't know me. I need to learn how to say what I'm feeling in order to get the help that I need, in order to be a productive member wherever I'm at, even inside of the prison before I came home. So it wasn't that tough, to be honest. So having that conversation with myself, looking out at my cell, looking out that window, and I said that when I come off, I'm going to take one step and put one foot in front of the other. If somebody confronts me, I'm going to address it in a way that it's not usual for me. I'm going to try to have a conversation. What's going on? How can we come to a conclusion that works for both of us, instead of being angry, putting my hands up and doing something that's not reflective of who I think that I am.
Okay, awesome. Because it always has that mind shift when you are, destined to, live out your true character. Right. That's one of the things that I always ask my guests, like, because we were doing awful things. You know what I'm saying? We were, first of all, we up in prison. Then we get in prison. One of the things I used to surmise when I was locked up, it was like, I'm already locked up. What they gonna do? You know what I'm saying? They're gonna lock me up some more. It's just like that whole mindset, like, it don't even matter no more. And then I had to find out my motivation. So, what kept you motivated after you made that decision? What kept you motivated during that time after your mindset?
I thought about my mom a lot.
Yeah.
I grew up never being a son that she knew that I could have been. I would always go back to Lafayette Projects. Being 12 years old, I remember she was crying. She laid her head on my shoulder and she was crying. I was about 12, and I told her I didn't know why she was crying, but I told her that it was going to be okay, that I was going to make it okay, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and I would think about that moment throughout my incarceration, like I never did anything to make my mom proud. Every single thing that I'm going to do going forward, I'm going to have her in front of me, and I'm going to absolutely make sure I execute on whatever it is that I'm doing, and whether I know it or not. And so coming out here into a world that I never knew, and I don't know how to be out here. I have no muscle memory on what to do because everything I'm doing for the first time.
Mhm.
One of the misconceptions that so many people have when we go to prison is that we're going to have what they call rehabilitation. We're going to go through that. So when we come back home, we better than we left. And I would always say I don't believe in rehabilitation. When you put the two letters re in front of something, when you say redo, you put re in front of turn, return. And so I grew up as a juvenile delinquent. I grew up not having much. I grew up in the streets. So when I go to prison, which I'm living in compounded trauma. So when I go to prison and then they tell me they want me to be rehabilitated. So what he asked me to return to, because I didn't grow up with anything. I didn't grow up in anything. So I believe that habilitation is actually happening. We learn how to live for the first time. Every single thing that I'm doing out here, I'm doing for the first time. So the errors that you hear me make, the mistakes that you see me making, they're happening for the first time in real life. So I think that the idea of what it means for somebody to be in prison, to on their own, essentially, because prison doesn't do nothing but promote everything that's not worth a life. So anything that's worth promoting a life, you got to find it yourself. You got to go to it. You got to volunteer yourself, your time, in order to get to anything that's going to set you up for success when you get out here. So I was afraid actually coming out here because I didn't have any kind of thoughts to run back to on what to do to get through any given situation, and
Yeah.
it made it tough. But in order to stay in that fight, or to stay in that fight, even though I didn't know what I was going to do from day to day, it means everything. Like the tenacity, the
Mhm.
will that we had because of what we gone through. That I didn't go through hell to die in hell. And
Yeah.
if I'm not a speaker, I'm going to learn to speak because I know that me opening my mouth and being a voice, somebody needs to hear this. And so because of that, I said my mom in front of everything that I'm going to do, and I
Yeah.
told her I'm going to come out here and I'm going to be the son that she always knew I could have been, and that's what I'm going to keep doing until my dreams are fulfilled, until the goals that I want to see accomplished are actually accomplished, and they're not yet.
All right, and that's big kudos to you for that, man, because that's one of the motivating factors for me. I think for most of us, there's always some external that we grab onto. It's like, well, I got to prove to this person, I got to prove to myself that I'm not as awful as people think I mean. I'm locked up, man. Like when you locked up, it's you told when to go to sleep, you told when to do this. If you don't comply, you throw it in the hole. You can get beat up, or if you got issues with other of your inmates who are not colleagues, I mean, y'all can get the fight. You can get shanked. You can get anything. Anything can happen depending on your attitude. And so when you don't have something to latch on to, something to motivate you during your time inside, after you've made that change, it can be really easy to give up. I'm gonna tell you an interesting story because this just recently happened to me, man. My mom, I grew up in a household where alcoholism was prevalent. My mom battled it, and occasionally stuff like that. But she was one of the most driving forces behind me trying to get home. Like after I was messing up in prison, I was like, you know what, it might be time for me to go home. I was worried about her passing or dying, or my dad dying before I got home. And when they had shipped me to, they was like, you're not going to the film. I mean, you're not going nowhere. You're just dead. So that became a motivating factor for me. But recently, man, she had a bout with her alcoholism again, and basically she let me have it. She's like, you doing all this, you doing all that, and it hurt the shit out of me, bro.
Yeah,
It hurt the shit out of me, bro. And I'm like, dang, you just don't even know, you know, the motivating factor that you were. You don't know how big of a factor you were in the success that I'm having now. And just because I'm not, going by your rule or something that you believe in, I might disagree with it. For you to say that, it was a test for me. And I say, you know what? It's really not even her. It's just the enemy using her in order to try to deter me from my goals. So, like, for you, how long you been out now, bro? How long you been out?
I've been out 22 months.
22 months. So, what was the biggest shock when you first came home? What's the biggest shock?
Well, to be honest, I think I went back, like that muscle memory I just was talking about. When I got out, I saw a lot of the young guys with hoodies on,
Yeah.
running all around the place. When I was younger, having a hoodie on meant something different. So it meant that you was in the streets and you was living a certain way. I didn't know that it was just a style that they had going on. So I would look over my shoulders a lot, not understanding what that was, and if the kid behind me with the hoodie was walking towards me to do something. And so, and me being in the state of mind that I'm in, I'm not going to harm that kid because that's not who I am. But how do I maneuver in this world when I think that that I don't know anything about? So I think that was a reality for me.
Yeah.
And actually, the technology absolutely was a reality for me, a different kind of reality. So I think some of the same things that most people struggle from when they get out, I had those struggles, but I will say, but although I had those struggles, I didn't want to be in these shared living spaces that guys go into when they come out. I was fortunate enough through one of my persons to be in my own apartment 30 days after I got out, and so
It's a blessing.
yes, it really was. It was like a different kind of peace of mind. But I struggle with turning on the stove and the refrigerator. But I know that the BG&E and stuff was paid, and I was in that apartment 2 days before I realized that I just needed the circuit breaker, and just to turn it on.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I was showering there, but I was going and I was eating at a convenience store because I didn't realize that. But I think just how people are. So I think the way that people are out here, it was different, but
Yeah.
the struggle was pretty much the same, like a lot of
Yeah.
guys do when they come home.
Yeah. I think for me, I think the biggest uh, shock for me was how socially inept I was. Like you said, like the people walking around you, like crowds, I couldn't deal with them at all. I couldn't deal with them. I had a guest on last week, Robbie. He was talking about how it was hard for him if he were to go somewhere with his woman that he couldn't leave her side. You know what I mean? Because he just wasn't comfortable. Now I was okay with the killers and the dealers and Ravens. I was cool with them. I knew who they were. But out here it was like a little bit different. I wasn't too keen to. I would watch people like try to get that out of my head that they're not a mark because they just don't know where I've been. You know what I mean? So I think that was the biggest shock was realizing how socially behind I was when it just came to this regular everyday stuff. I went in a grocery store, bro, and like freaked out. It's just so much selection, so much stuff you can do. People just, kids running around I'm like, Lord have mercy, let me get up out of here, bro. I can't deal with this. But of course, technology is one of those things. So, how did you navigate trying to find employment, especially with technology? Most of the time, you got to go on the internet and apply for jobs. So, how did you navigate that, or did they provide that kind of training while you were in?
Yeah, so I actually was attending college while I was incarcerated, and
Mhm.
so I also was the first incarcerated citizen to attend college while on work release. And
Mhm.
so I was going to the University of Baltimore as a student and as an employee, and my job was actually a front desk receptionist.
What? You?
Yes, at
Oh
the
my God! Hold on, right? That's hilarious. Bro.
it was pretty tough. But I had a lot of people that I worked with at the career and internship center at the University of
Yeah.
Baltimore to help me navigate through it. And so essentially,
Mhm.
what I would do is they would have tours that come through with potential students to show them
Mhm.
how to navigate through their college career and the things that they would want to do after college. and pair them up with the college, their career coaches of the schools that they were actually in. So I
Mhm.
think like the social aspect of that was more frightening than the technology aspect of it. So like you said, having those crowds of people coming to the
Yeah,
CIC and me having to engage with them and how you doing? How can I help you? I'm Donte, and
right.
I'll introduce you to you. So going through all of that was pretty tough, but I
You ever
felt
freak out? You ever freak out at any point?
oh absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And to tell you about one of those moments, I had 19 years in at the time, and I recall sitting behind the liberal arts building, and because I'm writing, so I'm writing a book, so I was writing about my experiences of that day, and I had just broke down because I just felt like a whirlwind was just happening. I had never experienced anxiety. I didn't think anxiety was real until that day. And I remember the dean of the College of Public Affairs, my dean had just happened to come out the building and he saw me and he said, Donte, what's wrong? And I said, Dean Hartley, I have no idea what I'm doing out here. I've been gone so long. Everybody on cell phones. It's just so much going on. It's like everything is just moving so fast and he gave me some comforting advice. It's about just doing it for me. I didn't have to go to college for every man that was incarcerated. Just be a student. Just take your time. And while that was good advice, but I just think the fact that I was in a world that I didn't know about, it just culminated to that day, and I broke down.
Yeah, I can imagine how tough that could have been, man. So going back, if you could give yourself advice, like if you where you at now and you see yourself getting out of prison, what advice would you give yourself on the day that you got released? What advice would you tell young Dante 22 months ago?
Yeah, I would tell myself, take my time. I absolutely don't have to fit 7 days into a day. That my understanding and my definition of success or fulfilled life is my own. I don't have to keep up with anybody else and what they're doing. Just take it one day at a time. Just simply live, simply breathe. Being out here, I felt like I just so many things that I wanted to do that I just needed to get it done as soon as possible. When I completed one thing, I wanted to get to the next, and I
Yeah,
was trying to do a week's worth of work in a day. So
yeah,
taking my time, sitting still.
I can relate, bro. Because when I got home, I was like, I got 15 years to make up. I gotta make up some time. I felt like just sitting around, I was losing more ground. Even though I was out here and I was seeing everything, I wasn't even socially prepared to deal with this stuff, but I always felt pressure to make up for lost time. And that's the advice that I would give myself, like you said, just take your time because you're not gonna rebuild any or build a life in one day. I mean, you just got home, bro. You know, but I immediately jumped into school. I had people telling me, well, because I had kids, before I went. When I got home, they were grown almost. They were graduating high school and all that stuff. They didn't really know me. And a lot of my family members were pressuring me, saying, like, you have been gone so long, you need to try to form a relationship with them. And I'm like, really? I don't even know myself out here, you know. I need to find me. Like, where's my place out here first? Then I'll deal with that. I don't think, having them around, they might start asking me, I'm the bank now, basically. I don't know you, but you haven't been around. You should provide this for me. I don't know you. You haven't been around, but I really want this. So you can make up all that lost time by purchasing. And hell, I ain't have no job. I just got home. So I think that's the advice I would tell myself also because I almost got caught up in that. I almost got caught up in trying to um, buy my way back into my children's life. Um,
That's a wow.
yeah, it happens. It happens. I mean, you have kids? No kids? No,
No, I don't have any
not yet.
kids, but I can relate to what you just said. Because one of the things that I told myself before I got out here is that I was finally going to be a part of my family. I
Yeah.
grew up with my family; they don't know who I am. I'm going to
Hmm.
take care of them, and
Hmm.
my definition of that wasn't the same as their definition. I felt like I ended up just being a cash app. I felt like
Yeah.
everybody needed something from me, and it was interesting because in the 21 years and 7 months I did, I never asked anybody in my family for a penny.
Right. And I was about to ask you that. How many of those same people sent you something?
Yeah, I didn't ask a penny the entire
How many
time
of those same people?
for sure.
Yeah. So, but moving forward, you are now the director of a behavioral health company. How did you transition into this role?
Yeah, so after having after getting my degree in human services, so it was an opportunity. A few companies was actually looking for someone that had that experience, and so I absolutely had the experience in human services. Although I was incarcerated, I do have the formal education that qualified me for the position, and I was so excited to get it. I didn't think that I actually would get it. And
Right.
so, but getting it, it absolutely changed my world. Seeing other people struggle, but want to be more than their struggles, I relate to that in a different kind of sense. And
Hmm.
so it took a lot, but I think that the educational component is what got me there. And so I'll never be so much to say that my lived experiences is what got me to this point. It is my lived experience, but it's coupled with the education. So education is one component that I feel like it takes you where you need to go.
Okay. Now that's like a lot of the redeeming factors that we try to stress on the conviction fiction. We were just talking about family and transitioning into a new job. You were at one time convicted felon, locked up, working, going to college, and now you're out, and now you are working for this behavioral health company. Where there's some people that felt like, oh, it won't be long. That's the same Dante, man, that
Yeah,
we know from then.
yeah.
Like, how did you deal with them?
So it's interesting because they say the first 30, 60, 90 days, you watch somebody when they re-enter into society, they'll show you exactly who they're going to be in that first 90 days. And so I had people who didn't reach out to me, like people who I'm talking about family as well that I reached out to that would absolutely not communicate with me. And so I thought that was tough because I'm like why don't I deserve a simple conversation, a simple hi? I'm free now. But because they only was trying to deal with me from what they remembered and not who I am, or giving me the opportunity to tell them at least who I am, it hindered my relationship with them now because
Yeah.
one of the things that I do out here is if you show me who you are, I'm going to absolutely believe you. So the same concept when it comes to them looking at us when we are returning, and the same thing could be said to the people that's been out here that's been in the same environments, the same communities that haven't done a quarter of what somebody that's returning doing. I feel like a man that's returning to society after being gone has a different kind of hunger in him for life. And so they said that your family will be the last to get on board with who you are and who you become. And so that is a reality. But 22 months later, I'm excelled whatever their expectations were of me. I'm actually still alive. My mom had a life insurance policy out on me when I was 17. I'm 44 years old now. So while prison is absolutely the worst example to give when it comes to becoming a man, but it's where I became a man at. And so, and I don't want to say I'm grateful for prison because ultimately I went there for doing something I had no business doing. But I learned what I'm supposed to have learned while being there. And so I hold myself accountable to what I went to prison for. But I also hold myself accountable to being more than what I went to prison for. And when I had that conversation next week, I'll have family members on there hearing me speak like this for the first time in my life because I don't come from a background of speaking. But
Hmm.
I'm absolutely a man of action. And so for the rest of my life, I may have to, it'll be people not believing I am who I say I am. Whether I'm on podcast, which I'm so humbled to be on this podcast, and I appreciate you having me here. Whether I'm on a TV speaking about what my experiences have been, there'll still be somebody that says, "Yeah, it's not going to last."
Yeah, it ain't gonna last.
Right.
I had something. It crushed me. Like I said, I was, I had a little personal little run in with a family member. Not, I mean, that was this week, man. It's been a tough week for me because to me, man, redemption is it's about transformation, second chances, and rewriting the narrative of life after incarceration. it's not just about being free from prison. It's about also breaking the stigmas, proving that people can rebuild or people can build on something, right? And using that experience to help others do the same.
For sure.
Through my work with the conviction fiction nonprofits like Maniac and Dreambuilders and some of the other people that I've come across in my advocacy for reentry and rehabilitation, I've come to understand that redemption means that I gotta own my past, but I'm not defined by my past.
Right.
Right? Using my story to uplift and educate others and create spaces where the formerly incarcerated can show their success and show that they are succeeding. Because like you said, they're gonna be people that don't believe in you. They're just waiting. I mean, you could do a million things right, but if that one mistake comes up and they're like, I told you, he's still the same old person. So I see redemption much more than just personal growth. It's a mission that we're on. Like you said earlier, people who have been incarcerated, I'm not going to say all of them, but there are a majority of us that come out with a mission. We come out with a different type of hunger.
For sure.
Because we take control of our story, not just for ourselves, but for those still struggling to find their way after incarceration. Now, as director of Reentry of Dreambuilders Foundation, shout out to our friend and one of our biggest supporters, April Stover Ross. I want to give her a shout.
Absolutely.
Um,
Sure.
as director of Reentry at Dreambuilders Foundation, what is the mission of the organization and how do you play a role?
So ultimately, so being the director of reentry, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to change the narrative of the pipeline theory. So we're trying to get in front of it. So you see a little black boy growing up in those environments where we're excluded from the American dream. When they say that by the time a black kid reaches the third grade, that you can tell if he's going to go to prison or not. So trying to get in front of that by giving the kid the wraparound services that he needs before he gets to that estimation from people who don't know him. And then thinking about those men that's actually already in the pipeline, that's in prison, that has done something that got them there, but thinking about what the system's supposed to be holistically. So the system is supposed to be set up for two components. That's the penalty from which you went to prison for, and then you have the rehabilitation side that I told you I absolutely don't agree with necessarily. But going there and learning about who you are in order to come out and then be a productive member in society. So having a team of people around me that's going to actually help me to put forth what reentry is, the holistic picture of it. When you go to prison, your family goes to prison with you. That black man is removed from that home. And when that black man is removed from that home, a lot of things take place in that home that may not have happened if you had that figure in that home. So also when a man re-enters society, he's re-entering into a world that he don't know. He's re-entering into his family as a man that they don't know. So thinking about what re-entry absolutely means is getting in front of that pipeline, tackling the issues that's going to keep that black man away from those stigmas that we are stigmatized with.
Okay, so that's what you talked about the pipeline. So, are there specific policies or specific programs that you believe will have the biggest impact to reduce or prevent recidivism? Like, what program would help produce that?
For sure. So for me specifically, I think it won't be I don't think the traditional programs for me. I think all the traditional programs that's helping a black boy, a young black man to better himself is great. But I think like the spin, the twist that I'm going to give to reentry is having those guys that grew up in that street culture speak down about that street culture, that we're not supposed to be on street corners. We're not supposed to be brandishing weapons against each other in order to articulate what we're trying to get across. One of the things that I spoke about at a Black Minority Health Summit this past summer, I spoke about that when it came to trauma in Black men. So when you grow up in an environment that has you and you're not emotionally connected to anything, When a person picks up his fist, that man that's in front of him gonna pick that knife up, and then that man gonna pick up that gun. You don't see a person in front of you. All you see is a higher, a deeper form of aggression. So that's why it's so easy for somebody to pick up a weapon and harm somebody, because they have no emotional connection to what's in front of them. So I think the services that I think that are so important are the ones that's going to give that child some sort of emotional connection. So thinking about the importance of a hug, I wish somebody would have hugged me early on. I think that would have absolutely transformed a lot of the situations that I was in. I think that that's important. So that component, that emotional connection. So any program that's putting that alongside the curriculum is important, and then having people that were actually in the streets talking about why the streets doesn't work. So going to the streets looking for a family is absolutely not going to take you in the direction that you need to go.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, because a lot of the programs that I did, they did have the emotional. Like that's where is the driving force behind a lot of crimes, a lot of people choosing to do crimes because this is emotional. I'm hungry. I got to go feed this hunger, no matter how I got to do it, right? Or even with aggression. If you know, oh, he got a knife, I got to get something bigger. I need to get a gun. So that's an interesting point. So emotional programs that will teach emotional literacy. I think that's very key to reduce because people, like you said, people look at, it's not more so as a person anymore. It's a threat. It's a direct threat.
For sure.
But these folks got families. They may have children. They may have grandmas, all this stuff that we have too. So that it's more than just someone threatening you. Now, what do you say to those who feel like their past mistakes define them?
I would say to anybody who think that they past mistakes define them, what do you want to be known for? I think that I absolutely was that person that I thought that my past mistake or my past bad decision defined me, and I think that that goes into that imposter syndrome that we learn so much about in any room that we're in. I battled with myself for so long. I would lay in my cell and look at that top bunk and say, how can I go out here and tell somebody how to live and what not to do when I did all of the things that I'm saying that you shouldn't do? How do I do it? How do I stand in front of the people and not be a hypocrite? Like, because I once lived that way. And I gracefully and gratefully stand in front of the people and be that hypocrite. I think that our past decisions don't define who we are. We are absolutely allowed to evolve and grow like anybody else does. No one wants to be known and defined for something, a bad decision that he made when he was younger. Can you imagine getting into a car accident 10 years ago and somebody still blame you for that car accident 10 years ago as if you didn't evolve and grow as a person? Right. And I do think that it's absolutely unfathomable that we know how much we go through as Black people. We know all of the trauma that we go through as Black people. But then when it comes to actually allowing somebody to live beyond it, we hold them to it. And I don't think that's how that's supposed to work. So you absolutely can be more than what your trauma said that you can't be more than. Just put your one foot in front of the other. Whatever your dreams that you actualizing for yourself that you want to happen, just one foot in front of the other. Keep doing the work, and it'll actualize.
There you go. Now we're diving deep into redemption, reentry, and the challenges of rebuilding after incarceration with Donte Hayes, a man who spent like 21 years and 7 months behind bars, and now leading the way in behavioral health and reentry support. His story is proof that transformation is possible, and that second chances aren't just given; they're actually earned. So if this conversation resonates with you, if you're someone you know has faced the struggle of reentry, then you need to check out Dreambuilders Foundation. Right? Go to their website. It's all on social media. You can check on our links on our social media posts and connect with them. Also, you need to check out the Conviction Fiction, Changing the Narrative of Life After Lockup. And it's a book that I wrote, which is the first-hand journey of incarceration, transformation, and rebuilding a life with purpose. It's all about owning your past, guys, because I don't want you guys to think we get on here every week and we're like, oh, we totally forgot what we've done. We totally forgot. It didn't make a difference. We don't. if they were victims, that we don't show love to the victims. No, that's not the point of the podcast. The point of it is to like we own and take accountability for our mistakes, right? Just because we made those mistakes, don't hold them against us for the rest of our lives. That's what second chances are all about. And we just proved that change is possible. That's what this show is all about today. So, Donte, with you being on here, I guess I need to ask, what's next for you? You got any upcoming projects, initiatives, or ways that people can support your work?
Yeah. So no, I'm so definitely appreciate everything that you just said, because second chances are possible and we deserve one. So what I got coming up next, or what I'm doing next is I'll be launching a junk and hauling company, which will be operational soon. It's called Another Man's Trash LLC. And ultimately, what I intend on doing through Another Man's Trash is educating the community on environmental and personal health. African Americans living in areas that's inundated with trash adversely impacts the health of those people living in those areas. Most people can't afford to leave the areas that they live in, but they absolutely should be afforded an opportunity to live in a clean area. So through Another Man's Trash, I'll provide job opportunities for the youth, to educate them on what it means to take care of themselves and take care of their environment. I'm writing a book, and it's called Concrete Footprints: The Steps That Cemented My Identity. I'm already inside the first draft of it. I'm hoping to have that out by January of next year. So ultimately, the things that I've accomplished and the things that I will accomplish, all of those things that I'm doing, is just simply to say that you can come from a street corner, you can make a bad decision and go to prison, but ultimately you still can define what you'll be known as. And I have a saying that says that we are as responsible for what's narrated about us just as much as we are responsive to what's narrated about us. We can stop being responsive to so many things being narrated about us if we just be responsible for what we're doing. So I chose to get in front of the narrative about my life. And everybody else can do it. And I just hope that I'm the example that people can follow to do so.
Awesome, man. That's some great stuff, man. That's really great, bro. And I was about to ask you what was your key message, but you answered that question. What is one key message you want listeners to walk away with and create your own narrative? That's very important, man. So how can people connect with you and Dreambuilders Foundation?
So you can go to dbfdn.org. So dream underscore builders FDN on Instagram, Donte underscore Hayes on Instagram, Another Man's Trash LLC 2023 on Instagram. And yes, that's you can connect with us there.
All right, awesome, bro. So we definitely going to get those posted. I'll go back and rewatch this video so I can make sure I include those on our social media posts, because we definitely want to make sure that we get the word out. Now, as we close this show, Donte Hayes is proof that redemption is possible, that second chances matter, and that pain doesn't have to define us. It can be transformed into purpose. If you're someone you know is navigating reentry, know that the journey isn't easy, but with the right support and mindset, it is possible. So keep pushing forward, guys, and we'll see you next time on The Conviction Fiction.